Hey, greetings, Fred in Alaska. Thanks for joining me today. Just follow up to the Memorial Day trail ride. So, what I wanted to share with you today comes from Timothy. Timothy is an aspiring bush pilot. He has been getting his schooling and his, his qualifications and everything little by little, and he just last year got his pilot's license, and he was using his brother's plane. His brother had inspired him, and various other bush pilots over the years that he's followed and just checked out. One of those things that causes inspiration when you're younger and gets you to want to go and do things. So respect to that. Been there, done that. Nothing better than flying around a little bush plane, little Super Cub, flying by wire. Can be some intense stuff, years ago, back when spotting herring, I was flying back seat and spend 12 hours a day, mile up, like you're tied to a string, just circling around, spotting biomass for the catcher boats. Anyway, so Timothy, he got his license and everything, and he had borrowed his brother's Piper Cub, and this happened not quite a year ago. It was last June. He left from Anchorage, Lake Hood, and he flew out here to Big Lake, refueled at a friend's place, and his friend happened to have a cabin further out. Asked me not to reveal it, but it's between here and Fairbanks. I'll leave it at that. And so his friend's cabin and everything has a big fuel shed just right near the lake that it's adjacent to, and it's a big old shed, and he flies out drums of fuel periodically and just has a big stash. And that's another reason he didn't want too much direct information, because people can be pieces of shit and go out and steal your stuff. Anyway, so Timothy leaves Big Lake after talking to his friend, gets the keys and all the pertinence he needed as far as getting there, and directions and everything. So as he's gets there, he's not low on fuel, but he decides to top everything off, and in the back of the Piper Cub he has a 12 gauge shotgun. He's carrying a 44 on his hip. Well, it's chest holster, and he's lined out for bear and everything as such. But he decides that he's going to bring extra cans of fuel because he wants to do some puddle jumping, and he doesn't want to get caught super low on fuel. He wants to be able to make it back at least to his friend's cabin there and refuel and everything like that. So from there he takes back off, and he starts just landing here and there. And the last place he had landed was pretty short landing area, but he had just enough room to be able to take off and break free of the pontoons and the friction and take off. So he lands, he taxis around, parks it, and he's facing away from shore. As he parks it, he ties off, and he decides he's going to hike up this little ridge. Now, land of the midnight sun, this is last June when he was doing this, it was daylight the whole time. It didn't get dark or anything. But when he gets up to the top of this little ridge and everything, he looks at the time, and it's going on 11 o'clock at night. Couldn't tell the difference. It was a little darker than it is right now without direct sunlight. And so Timothy is sitting there for a little bit, and he's enjoying some stuff he had brought to eat, and he could look around. He didn't see anything, but on the back side of this ridge from the pond, there's a bunch of black spruce, and it's just a thick patch of woods that just kind of work away and head up towards these mountains off in the distance. And he could see the muskegs here and there spotted throughout. And he said as he was sitting there and he was eating, he got about halfway done, and he got this shiver up his back, right? And he just got this real uneasy feeling. And so he stands up, sets stuff down, and he picks up the shotgun, and he's looking around, and he's trying to figure out what is sparking this, because he said it was random. It came out of nowhere, and there was no tangible reason. There was nothing he could see, right? And so he's looking back down into this wooded area thinking, wow, there must be a bear kind of working its way through, and it's going to come up out of this tree line at some point. And this tree line is about 150 yards down, sloping away. He wasn't super high up, and so you know, it was just kind of a gradual, you know, decline and all that. And so as he's sitting there looking and watching, he's sets the shotgun down, he said, and he was putting his stuff back in his pack, and he glanced back and, you know, checking on the plane and stuff like that. And there's some geese flying in and some ducks flying into this pond. And so as he's standing there, he's kind of calming down a little bit, still has a real weird feeling in the pit of his stomach, he said, and he just couldn't shake it. He kept looking, couldn't see anything, and he hears the ducks and the geese behind him making noise, and so he was distracted. He looked back and they're all flying off. They're taking off. Geese one direction, ducks the other, and he's like, oh, that was weird. Maybe they had a little, you know, interspecies squabble and they just parted ways or whatever. Just random shit, you know. And so as he's doing that, as he turns back around and refocuses on his backpack, getting the last bit of stuff in there, he glances down at the trees and he sees about half the distance, which is about half a mile away, he sees trees shaking back and forth hard, like, and it's making its way, whatever it is coming his direction. So immediately he, you know, flings the backpack on, he cinches up the straps, he's looking, grabs his shotgun, and he's watching, because he's just like transfixed, like, what the hell is this? Because it's making noise, crash, crash, breaking, all sorts of crazy noises. And during the midst of that, this type of scream, holler, growl comes bellowing out from the direction he's looking, and it almost sounded like it was echoing from behind him too. So it caught his attention. He looks back, because he's, with the way the ridge is, he wouldn't suspect it being echoing behind him, because it's basically, that ridge is like a sound barrier, you know, but he's hearing it from behind him. And he looks back, and on the opposite side of the lake, he sees some trees moving as well. And so he's like, well, fuck this, you know. He didn't know what to think of it. And so he knew he didn't have much time before whatever this was coming towards him through the trees was going to clear the tree line, and how quickly it was moving, it would cover the ground in no time. So he turned around, started heading back downhill, and looking back every once in a while. And as no sooner he turns his back, he said, as he was coming down, working his way down, the noise from behind him, it started making this vocalization, real weird. He couldn't even imitate it. He just said it was the strangest stuff he had ever heard. It sounded half demonic, kind of like a weird cackling kind of sound, and also it was just this garbled, kind of like just guttural kind of noises, and he didn't know what to make of it. So he's picked up his pace, obviously. He's wearing hip boots, right? And so he's going along, and he's going through the brush and all the, you know, berries and, you know, all the other little bushes and stuff that surround this muskeg. And as he said, as he's coming down, he's looking at the plane, and the movement that was happening earlier, the trees was off to his left a little ways, but way further down, not immediately on him. But he said he saw something standing there, and so he stops, and instinctively he raises the shotgun up and points. And as he does so, this really dark brown or black figure backs off into the trees. He said he knew from just the size of the trees all around him, which were about, you know, black spruce, but maybe 20 foot tall at the most, at the tallest ones. And this thing was up there as far as its size. So he was guessing about 13, 14 foot tall, which freaked the shit out of him, right? Because what the hell is that? Hairy man, Bigfoot and all that, he always just laughed at the shows, because, you know, all these shows make a mockery of it. So he never took it serious. He knew there was something going on, but because of the mockery that was made, he didn't know what to think. Basically, he didn't know what to accept as real, or, you know, whatever bullshit is bullshit, right? And so because the visual he had, his movement forward was really, he said it was strained. He said he had a real hard time forcing his legs one in front of the other to go even remotely that direction because how freaked out he was. So as he's forcing himself forward, behind him, he hears that guttural kind of cackle, kind of weird, kind of popping click sound, right? And not like the Predator. This was very, very different, unique, and of its own, right? And so he looks back, and as he looks back at this little ridge that's behind him, he saw something dark just moving just above the horizon line of that ridge, and he couldn't make it out, but it was, whatever it was big, and that noise was continuous. So he turns around, and he's got about roughly 75 yards to get to the plane. And remember, he's thanking God that he had decided to turn it around before going on his little hike, so he could just untie, hop in, and be able to take off, right? So as he's going along, he no sooner turns around from the distraction from behind him, and he's continuing forward. And again, he said it was strained. It was very, very difficult to intentionally head that direction. He said everything in him was like this wall of like fear that he was pushing into just to get towards a plane. And he was sitting there, and he's kind of trying to calculate how much time he had been away from the plane, warm up time, and all these things are going through his mind. It's pre-flight. He's like, fuck a pre-flight, I don't give a shit. I'll land in a lake somewhere a couple miles away and go through if I have to, or whatever, right? So he's forcing himself, and he says as he's going, all of a sudden from that initial where he saw the actual visual of the silhouette or the being stepping back or whatever, all of a sudden he said it had to have been the top half of one of these black spruce trees that were just, it was flinging. It was in the air. He noticed it because it cleared the tree line, and that's what caught his attention, because it broke the tree line. Otherwise it blended in. He wouldn't have noticed it, but he catches eye of it, and it's coming towards him. So he stops, and he doesn't know what to do, because he's kind of half in muck, half in berry bush and tundra and muskeg, you know. So he's like, you know, he's standing there kind of like, where do I run? And this thing lands, you know, about half the distance between him and the plane's off to his right just a little bit. And so he says as he takes it all in, he says he starts hyperventilating, and so he's panicked. And so what he does is he swings his shotgun up in the air and pow, fires off a shot, starts yelling obscenities and cussing and everything, right? And he hears noise. He's got some ringing going on from the shotgun, but there's cracking from the trees straight off to his left, further way down the pond, right? This little small lake, pond, whatever you want to call it, this marshy area. And so he, reinvigorated, starts beelining for the plane. And then he starts thinking, shit, this is a Piper Cub. You know, it's skinned. It's not aluminum shell or any of that. You know, it's got this type of fabric coating, and it's all covered and that type of stuff. So he's worried about stuff being thrown at the plane and damaging the wings and stuff like that. And so because of this thing being thrown, this half of freaking, you know, black spruce, he's totally like focused on that versus the noises behind him. And in between everything going on, Timothy says he just got this feeling like something is on top of you, behind you. And he turns around, and at the base of the ridge he had just come down, you know, he's way closer to the plane than what he was initially, but at the bottom of this ridge he sees this hulking mass, right? It wasn't standing up, it was just like a, you know, it looked like a Volkswagen bus turned sideways and just broad, wide, really dark, deep chocolate brown, and it had a little bump that you can make out was a head. And he said he takes a look. Meanwhile, remember, the whole time this is going on, that guttural noise, the clicks, pops here and there and stuff, that was a constant. But because of all the distractions, it just became background noise, right? But once he refocused his attention in that direction, he said this thing was down on all fours, real low, doing this like the spider crawl thing you hear about, right? And he said what was weird is the way it was rotating the rear hips were doing a lot more rotation versus the movement of the front arms. And he said that freaked him out. It startled him so much he dropped the shotgun instinctively drew the pistol and points the pistol. And he said as soon as he pointed the pistol in that direction, he said this thing just was standing up almost instantly. He said he'd never seen something happen that quick. It was like instantaneous. This thing was standing up and it screams at him. He said the guttural scream and the power behind it, because this thing was less than 100 yards away. He said he felt it through every fiber of his being. And at that point, he said he started shooting. He didn't give a fuck. He boom, boom, boom. He emptied the 6 rounds, but this thing had already taken off and ran back up the ridge and over. But he was, busting shots behind it. He immediately dumps the empty shells. He's hitting the little plunger to get them out, and he speed loads another, 6 in there and closes it, turns around. He's looking in the direction where the black spruce came from. There was that other figure. It was further out from the tree line. He said it was definitely at least 12, 13 foot tall, at least. It was skinnier than the one he had just seen. Looked like a really oversized basketball player, like Chewbacca, but much taller and more girth. And he said this thing was growling. And his ears are ringing from the gunshots, okay? However, this growling was so powerful, it wasn't that he was necessarily hearing it because of the he was feeling it. It was just vibrating his body. Totally motivated. He was gonna beat some Kenyans on the track meet, man. He hauls ass. Yeah, he's running. He had left the shotgun because at this point, fuck it, right? He's gone. Runs over. He gets about, he said he was about 4 to 5 lunges into his run, and all of a sudden it dawned on him, he needs that shotgun. It doesn't belong to him. And there's sentimental value to that shotgun for the friend that he was borrowing it from. So he had to stop himself, and he was contemplating in moments, just instantaneous moments of the pros and cons of grabbing it, or trying to come back for it, or all these things. He decides, and he regrets it, but he decides he's going to grab it. So he turns back around and covers the ground real quick. Almost ran past it because he's just lost, and he said his thoughts were just scrambled, wanting to get the fuck out of there. So he grabs a shotgun. He turns around. This thing is no longer in view. Everything's just dead quiet. But with the ringing, he wasn't sure, exactly how quiet. He could just feel like stagnant. It just felt like oppressive. So on his return trip from turning back to grab the shotgun, he's taking more of his time, being more methodical. He's looking at his back. He was checking his 6. He's looking all around. And once he gets closer to the plane, he's thinking, oh God, please don't start throwing stuff, because he didn't want the plane getting damaged and him being stuck. And so he gets up onto the pontoon, gets over the door, drops it, throws a shotgun in the back, hops in, and still has the lower door open, has the upper door shut, and he's firing up, right? He fires up, and he's letting everything warm up, and he's watching. He's looking out the side door. He's pushing it open, looking out back, not seeing anything, looking both sides, and everything warms up. Now, he had 2 tethers tied, one from each strut off the wing, and he just tied it to berry bushes, right? Not very tight and everything like that. So he just powers up. He didn't jump out to untie, right? Because he just put little half hitch ties, just to keep it from, drifting away from shore. So he figured, fuck it. At worst case, I'm dragging some berry bushes with me when I take off. And sure enough, he takes off. One side had a bunch of berry bushes, the other just came undone. But he leaves and he circles around and he doesn't see anything. And he made sure that he came back by. He could see the half a spruce tree that was chucked at him laying there. He could see his trail through the marsh and everything, and circled around a couple times. Couldn't see anything, at least in the trees or anything else, right? So heads back, ends up landing at the lake where his friend's property is to shake it off. He was like shaking like uncontrollably and trying to fly, and it was affecting his flying. So he knew he had to land, calm down, makes his way back to his friend's property, lands there, another friend of theirs happened to be tied off getting fuel as well. And it was one of his older brother's closest friends, right? That actually got his brother into flying years prior. A little bit of an older guy. And so he lands, comes back around, gets out, just starts shaking, right? And he's got tears coming down his face, and he was like, he said he felt so embarrassed in front of this old timer, you know, has been around, you know, salty dog. And the guy comes over and he was like, what'd you come across? Nothing more than that. What'd you come across? And so Timothy spews everything I just shared with you. Old timer's patting him on the back, said, hey, don't be hard on yourself, man. You know, there's a few of us out there that have experienced similar stuff, but no one ever talks about it, right? And just kind of breaks down what he had dealt with and made Timothy feel a little better. But man, that would definitely be some unnerving shit. But I'm going to thank Timothy for reaching out, being willing to share. Initially, he didn't want it public, but after, you know, he gave some consideration and just wanted it to be shared, you know. So I want to thank him. Thank him for his patience on getting back and forth on how I do these videos. I talked to the people many times so I could get all the details fleshed out and everything. But thank you to those people who tagged along on the trail ride. And also, I made a comment about Memorial Day, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't in disrespect to, you know, the memory of those who have served and, you know, sacrificed their life. It was the blah, blah, blah part of it is a holiday is just me. I don't pay attention to stuff. So when stuff like that comes up, it's just another day. And in no way was it in context to, you know, those who have sacrificed, because without their sacrifice, I wouldn't be able to run around and run in my mouth doing what I'm doing. But thank you to those who have served, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.